was bitter.
Just a little, but that's okay. I think there's probably a lot of bitter people in X Fandoms. It's kind of a lot of bitterness in X Fandoms at this point.
Have to prepare. We have a couch.
Who doesn't need a therapy session at a convention? I mean, this is what, Sunday? At this point, I think everybody needs some therapy. Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel on Sunday. I know, thank you so much for coming to see me and coming to see us instead of Jean-Luc Picard. My name is Kara Helgren, and if you are here for the panel on what to do after your fandom, your show goes off the air, then you're in the right place. So, and I am Kara Helgren with the PDXBrowncoats. I'm the president of the nonprofit organization. I am also one half of the podcast Grim PDX. I heard a woo. Thank you. And I'm also an producer, editor, and writer for the Signal podcast for the Firefly fandom. So and just to give some background, the fandoms that I'm most involved in are obviously Firefly, and also Battlestar Galactica. I'm a huge fan. So those are kind of the two fandoms that I have the most experience with. And I would like to have my guests introduce themselves. Please give your name, your credentials, and also the fandoms that you are the most involved with. Please. Daryl, why don't you go first?
All right. My name is Daryl Darnell, and I am one half of the Fringe Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the now canceled Fox television show Fringe. And all right. And Clint is my co-host and business partner. We have Golden Spiral Media as our business, and Fringe is our. Well, mostly we podcast about current shows, although we have an entire series on Firefly that we did. We are huge Firefly fans. But Fringe is definitely the fandom that we identify ourselves most closely with, and Revolution, which is not a canceled show, hopefully for quite some time. But yeah, Golden Spiral Media is our podcasting group that we have, and Fringe. So yeah.
So I'm Carrie, and I keep waiting for this to go to I'm Les, but Les is not here. He's in Atlanta. I am one of the co-hosts of the Signal Podcast, which is a podcast that has been running for 8 years. We're now into our 9th season. We just started it. So yeah, that's probably the biggest fandom I've ever been involved with. But I have a laundry list of shows that I love, things like Firefly, Farscape, Eureka, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate, pretty much anything that was on the Sci-Fi Channel when the Sci-Fi Channel was not devoted to wrestling.
I know, right?
So, and I come to a lot of these things late. I just have, I have so many shows that I want to watch, so I come to things late. But I do love of the current things that are out, like Revolution. Oh my God, I can't wait for it to come back. So.
Okay. Well, so just to sort of kick it off, what right now do you guys, you guys obviously do a lot for your fandoms, but what do you do when what did you do originally when your show ended? Like, did you go home and cry? What was your first kind of response to that as a fan when it ended?
More recent for you.
Yeah, I feel like you should take that versus mine is like still a fresh wound.
Still
yeah.
Fresh.
So I actually did not watch Firefly until after the whole thing had happened. A lot of people who came to it late, you watch it and you're like, what the hell? Why did these people cancel this show? This is awesome. But I was early enough that I had gotten hooked onto Firefly before Serenity came out. So that's how I got involved in the whole podcast and promoting the fandom, was because of Serenity. But I was brokenhearted when I realized there were 14 episodes and that was it. It was devastating. So I had the friends who introduced me to it live in California, and I didn't talk to them for a while because I was so mad at them. I was like, why didn't you let me live in ignorance? But no.
Yeah, for us, like I said, it's still a fresh wound. Obviously, it just ended
a
little over a month ago, 6 weeks, and it's been a bunch of group therapy. It really has.
Like this panel.
Like this panel.
Right.
It's and that's one of the cool things about what we've been able to do with the Fringe Podcast community is we have this wonderful group of people that comes together each week, and we've always done our podcast live in front of an internet audience, and we have a chat room where we interact with people, and we've got a couple of those people here in the room today, and so it's been a great community of people. So and we knew, gosh, we were so fortunate to know that our show was going to end. I mean,
yeah, you guys actually knew.
That was such a gift, right?
And your episodes were aired in order and not preempted for baseball.
Are we going to get started on that? Because I could go all day on that. I really could. Firefly just... Anyway,
right.
All right. Fringe
right,
first.
Right, Fringe.
And, anyway, we had the whole season to kind of to step through this process together. But even then, when it came to an end, it was sad. There were tears that were shed, but we kind of had our community of people to kind of hold us together and embrace the moment together and appreciate it for what it was.
Right.
Because we realized we had been given a gift that very, very few shows have been given.
Yeah, many are just randomly canceled, and you don't find out until after it's already happened.
Right.
So now since you've come to this panel, I'm guessing that there are probably quite a few of you who are fans of shows that have been canceled. Show of hands. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Just kind of yell them out. Exo Squad. Okay. What fandoms are you fans of? Buffy, Terriers, Farscape, Xena, Fringe, Arrested Development. Ooh, and Arrested Development is coming back.
Yay.
In the back? Yeah, Arrested Development's coming back.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
That is a cool story. But so yeah, there have been a lot of fandoms that have been canceled. A lot of fandoms have been canceled. And I mean, as fans of canceled fandoms, are we mostly aimed right now at kind of is Fringe and I mean Arrested Development is a good example that is come back from the dead. Like seriously from the dead. And Firefly got a movie, we got Serenity. So I mean, as part of a fandom, how much emphasis do you put on resurrection in your fandom as opposed to simply just trying to get more people into your fandom when a show has died? Like what part, like, is it like 30-40, like 30-70, or like what do you think is the most important part about being a fan of fandom that has died? Promotion or resurrection? Resurrection. Oh, obviously. Anybody?
What do you think?
So for me, it kind of depends on the length that the show had to run.
Okay.
So, Firefly, 14 episodes, prematurely canceled. I'm trying to think of others.
That's about the worst as it
That's-
gets, isn't it?
That's
Yeah, that
about
really is.
The worst. Well, Dollhouse was another one that they got a second season through the fan effort, I think, and just people pushing. What was the one where they sent in the peanuts?
Oh, that was Jericho.
Jericho. So Jericho got a season canceled. I loved Jericho. I loved the first
Jericho was
season of
pretty good.
Jericho. I hated the second season of Jericho. But, I thought that had been prematurely canceled. Like, it didn't get a fair shake. So I think that shows that are canceled within the first year, maybe two, I think Resurrection is a really good route to go.
Mm-hmm.
I have to apologize. I've never watched Fringe. I know, right?
I think I saw half an episode once.
Oh man! That's right. I will represent Fringe.
I think I saw
Okay.
the first episode. I'll put it that
and
way.
that's
But in my mind, things like Fringe and say Stargate, for instance. While I was very sad when those things got canceled, they got a really long run. They got 5 years for Fringe. Stargate got
9.
9 years.
Yeah, it was like
plus
9
a
years for
bunch
Stargate.
of spin-offy type things. Okay, SGU. So in my head, it has to do with the length of time. If I personally feel like the show has had a good run and it's had its chance and it still gets canceled, then I'm less inclined to resurrection and more inclined to
Bringing other
conversion.
people in. Gotcha.
I guess is the way to put it.
Conversion's a good way to put it. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really tough question because I think both are great things to try to do.
Mm-hmm.
As a person out here that enjoys this show, you guys both just said you haven't watched Fringe. Now I suddenly feel this desire, strong desire
The
to
strong
get both of you
need to force us to watch it.
to watch Fringe because I know that it's a great quality show that both of you will enjoy, even though I only met you moments ago.
And well, I mean, and that's true. I mean, like when I first got into the Firefly fandom, I bought 2 box sets, and I had one as a loaner, so that people would be like, "No, I've never seen Firefly. Let me help you with that."
Right. So there's definitely that part of it, but at the same time, you feel like there's this quality product out there that you love, and a lot of
Right.
other people love. You want more of that, and so there is that desire for resurrection. And fortunately, we live in a day and age where resurrection can occur in a lot of media, right? We saw the Firefly Redemption
As a movie,
last
yes.
night, right?
Yeah,
And that was
Browncoats
good.
Redemption as a fan film.
That's great. And Fringe is fresh, so we're still hoping for some sort of resurrection, whether that be through webisodes or comics or a movie. Although I don't know that any of those are ever going to happen, but we
Right.
still have a strong desire to have it resurrected in some way.
I really like the comic route. Like Buffy, you got season 8 through comics. Firefly is extended through comics. Avatar is
Battlestar
being
Galactica has been as
extended through
well.
comics. So I really like. I'm not a huge comic reader, so shame on me. I actually haven't read all the Firefly ones because I don't own them.
Oh, you're in so much trouble.
I
I'm just
know. When we interviewed Patrick Reynolds, I had to borrow
so much
Float Out.
confession going on after this.
So-
Is great.
Right. But I think that's it's a really good low cost,
Yeah.
low risk
Right.
way to extend the fandoms, and you get a hugely different population of people too. So
Well, as was mentioned before, Arrested Development, which I love that show. I love that show. Is coming back in May via Netflix. What kind of impact do you think Netflix is going to have on recently canceled shows and their fandoms? I mean, is that going to become the new way for fandoms to be able to resurrect their shows? Is that the future of dead? Is that the future of dead shows?
I think yes and no. I think the Netflix model, where they've got House of Cards, for example,
Right.
big names, David Fincher, Kevin Spacey, a lot of other big
Yeah,
names
I
behind
saw
that,
that.
right? And then you have what they're doing with Arrested Development. So you have Netflix really trying to take a new model with content and deliver it in a way where the consumer is nowadays, where we can consume content on our cell phones, our tablets, our televisions, and all places that we want to be consuming that content and delivering it instantaneously, right? House of Cards had
Right.
13 instant episodes. So I think yes, in the sense that will be a new paradigm for the way media television episodes. I don't know if you can even call it television episodes. Are they internet episodes at that point? But I think it's a new paradigm for how media is going to be distributed. Is it going to be a new way for shows to be resurrected? I don't think so. I think
Okay.
I personally, it's just my own 2 cents. I think this is kind of the exception with the Arrested Development.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem to be kind of an outlier because there has been talk about, say, getting Firefly back, getting new BSG episodes, things like that. But this is really the only one that has actually panned out is Arrested Development, which is going to be great because I love Arrested Development and I'm happy about that. But it may not turn out that way for every show. Like I don't know if Jericho would ever get
no,
like
I
a
don't-
Netflix resurrection.
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, as with fandoms and keeping them kind of cohesive, because some fandoms kind of don't stick around very well after their show is canceled. I know Firefly has, because we have some really big events. We have like a Can't Stop the Serenity event. Has everybody heard of Can't Stop the Serenity? Yes, we've got some couple of no's. It's a charity event every year done in lots of different cities where we show the movie Serenity and raise money for charity. So we have a big event every year to kind of look forward to. Do you think that having something like that, like a big event or a big convention, a big fandom-oriented convention, Battlestar Galactica is having Galacticon in Houston in May, when they have a lot of guests, and I really want to go, but I'm not going to get to. Do you think that having one of those big events is imperative to keeping a cohesive fandom after your show is canceled? That was a big question.
That is a big question.
Do you want to take that?
No.
I think it helps. I think that the Browncoat community, as an example, has been phenomenally close as a community. I think we've all bonded over our just outrage about how the show was canceled and how it was handled. And so having the conventions where we could all get together and piss and moan about that has been great. I've never been to any of the Firefly ones, but I go to Dragon Con every year, and you find brown coats everywhere, and you bond instantly, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that here with the brown coat booth, working behind the counter and getting to talk to a bunch of people in different brown coats. I mean, everybody still has that same bond. So I think those kind of conventions help with that kind of bonding, and it helps kind of drive the passion. Do I think every show's worthy of something like that? No, I don't. I don't know why I would say that, but I don't think that every show is necessarily worthy of it. So yeah, I don't know, but I think you can find it like cons like Emerald City and Dragon Con and stuff like that. If you work it right, you can get your presence big and felt. And I think the brown coats did that really well when Serenity was coming out. So you just have to do it.
Daryl, what do you think?
Well, again, coming from the perspective where this has just occurred for us, we're kind of in our infant stages of being,
Right.
Being angry.
A dead show community. But speaking from the Golden Spiral Media perspective, we had an event in Oklahoma City. I mean, who wants to come to Oklahoma City in January, right? I mean, Oklahoma City is not on anybody's travel list destinations,
My
right?
parents live in Lawton.
Do they really?
Yeah, I actually went to high school there.
Rock and roll.
So I do, yes, I would like to come to Oklahoma City.
You're the only one. Anybody else in this room have any desire to come to Oklahoma City? See,
Yeah.
no. Yeah.
We've got
okay.
like 3 people.
3 people.
All right, we're going.
Bless you, people.
Percentage-wise, that is huge.
That's a higher percentage than I would have thought when I asked the question. But we had an event in Oklahoma City for the finale, and we had 50 people come in. We rented out a room at the convention center, and we watched the finale on this huge screen and had a wonderful event together. And I mentioned earlier that we've always done our shows in front of a live internet audience, and so we've established this community around Golden Spiral Media. But having people come in, we had people come in, travel 1,500 miles, drive all the way down from Minnesota, come in from Canada, all the way across the U.S. to watch the finale with us. And what we observed after it was over was that our community, our little part of the Fringe community, was stronger than ever before, by far. And sadly, now the show is over, right? And so we still have other things that we do with Golden Spiral Media, but to get to your question, yeah, I think they're great. I think that if we could do something like that yearly, like you asked, I mean, I don't know that it would always have the same impact, but getting people that love the same thing around a TV screen of some sort and enjoying this thing that you love so much is just awesomeness, right? It's just that moment of awesomeness that you share as a community and keeps the thing that you love alive.
Right.
So as often as you can do that with people who you share that love with, do it, because it may not ever, will it grow your community? I don't know. Hopefully it will. Hopefully you'll say, hey, you've never seen Fringe. Ladies, come with me. We'll watch it together,
Yay.
And now you become part of the Fringe community. But it can't hurt. If nothing else, it keeps it alive with those that you do enjoy it with, right?
Right,
So
because
that
you have
matters.
kind of a destination to aim for.
Right.
I just wanted to pause real quick and see if anybody had a question. If you do, come on over to the microphone, speak into it very clearly because they want to be able to hear you for posterity. Yes, sir.
How significant would you say cosplay is for, how significant would you say cosplay is for calling attention to something?
Ooh. That's a good question.
I think it's fairly significant.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, so a couple years ago at Dragon Con, a friend of mine conned me into agreeing to be Cinnamon, one of the 3 Fruity OD bar girls. So I was painted blue, and I wore a short red dress and a wig, and it was super fun. And we got a lot of not necessarily by people who knew anything about Firefly, but those particular characters are so awesome and neat looking that people would stop you. It's like, I don't know what you are, but I have to take a picture. Now, what show are you from? And that kind of thing. So, if it's a very interesting person or character or whatever, I think that that's a great way of drawing attention to your community. How many Kayleys and Mals have you seen here? I mean, there have been a bunch of them, right?
Yeah, I think I saw one in the back, but I think
Yeah,
and
Sheila.
we've got one over here
Got
and
one
one in
here,
the
yeah,
back,
I mean-
and we've got a Stargater right here.
Right.
So I mean, so
Yes.
many
So
Jane
many
hats.
So You need to find, I think within any show, you need to find something that's so distinctive. Jane hats are a perfect example. You don't have to wear a
So
costume, just
easy,
wear the
yeah.
hat.
Or it's iconic.
People know, right? So you find something like that draws attention to your fandom. People ask you questions, and you can explain it and convert them, and there you go. You've grown your fandom. So cosplay's huge, I think.
Yeah, I think it's.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah,
That's
thank you
great.
for that. And I think that also you are from a fandom that I hadn't heard of before, and I believe you're cosplaying someone today too, right? What was the name of your character?
The cosplay I'm doing today is Cassie from Garth Ennis's Preacher comics.
Okay, so it's Cassidy from the Preacher comics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exo Squad is one of my other cosplays. I didn't bring it this year because it's not a comic book yet.
So
There
you
you
do Exo Squad and Preacher cosplay, and one of the things that doing those cosplays can do for those smaller fandoms that aren't necessarily on everybody's radar is you get to bring attention to your smaller fandom, but also you get to bond with people who do know about your fandom. And suddenly, instead of just being a cosplayer and a fandom of one, somebody recognizes you, and suddenly you've grown. You've become a fandom of two, and maybe then you become a fandom of four. And hey, you can just kind of snowball from there. So cosplaying can be really excellent for bringing attention to your fandom. Will somebody have a phone call that? The next question.
How would you go about suggesting to get one of those large events you mentioned started for a smallish fandom?
Ooh, good question.
I'm part of one that has seemingly given up over the last 4 years.
What may I ask what your fandom is?
It's a cartoon called Danny Phantom. I don't know if anyone here has heard of it.
Oh, hey,
There you go.
Glad to know there are other people.
There's your start right
and there's
there.
your
Yes,
fandom, and
I
there's
love
your
you
fandom of
people.
5.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
I have nothing. I
You
don't
got
know.
nothing?
Well, I think it might be difficult in your area. So if you live in even Oklahoma City, even though we're a fairly good-sized metropolitan area, we're not like LA or Seattle or something like that. So, finding people in your geographical area might be a challenge. But you just found 5 people in this room, and you may all live here. Super if you do. If you don't, with technology the way that it is, there's a way to do virtual events through Google Meetups or other types of, even audio or video meetups, chat rooms and stuff like that. And I would start there and then just see what develops from that. Keep sucking people into that.
Yeah,
Your passion
absolutely.
about that topic is going to be contagious, and just start there with the technology that we have today and just see, go with it.
There's, definitely the technology that we have now allows you to pitch an idea and have people glom onto it crazy fast. For Browncoats and also for Grimm, just throwing an idea out on, say, Twitter or Facebook or on a forum, and suddenly you're going to get some excited people who are really interested in helping you pull it off. The Can't Stop This Randy events started in Portland with some PDX Browncoats crew, and grew from there into a global event because everybody else thought it was a fabulous idea. And so now it's got a whole bunch of cities all over the world, throughout the US, in Canada, in Europe, in New Zealand, Australia. There's a ton of these events. We've been doing it for 8 years now, and we've raised a crazy crap ton of money, something like $750,000 for charity, for one charity. At least that was the last number I heard. And it was just a small idea that happened on a car ride home with some people who were actually in the room. So and now that you have the internet, everything on the internet is true. All you have to do is go on there and say, hey, I want to do this event. I would just suggest that you have an event or something that you can kind of start small with, like, for instance, showing some episodes for charity, or maybe talking to your local convention and seeing if you can get a panel, something like that will sort of bring attention to your fandom. And if you get a panel, make it interesting and fresh, and have difficult questions to ask good panelists. That way you get some good feedback. So, I mean, I hope that helps. And if you want, we can chat about it afterwards, too. Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Sorry. Yes, that was very long. Your question.
So this can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this may come as a great surprise, but I'm in Xena fandom, and
I could.
and it's interesting because I got into the show with the Netflix generation and just maybe 3 years ago and was like, oh my gosh, this is the most awesome thing ever. And I was delighted to see the fandom was still really strong. They still have conventions with the cast every year. And I started going to the conventions and getting involved with a campaign to have a Xena movie because the actors are interested in coming back and reprising their roles.
That would be cool.
But at the most recent convention in January, I was walking around with a video camera interviewing people saying, why do you want a Xena movie? And I noticed there was really a generation gap. Like the Tumblr kids totally were all about having a Xena movie, but the people who'd been in the fandom since the beginning said, you know, we thought we were getting a movie and we've had our hopes, you know, we lost kind of.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they were teased so many times that had lost hope. And they said, you know, there's going to be a Xena movie someday. It's inevitable, but they're going to cast younger hotties to play Xena and Gabrielle, and we don't want that. We'd rather have no Xena movie.
Right.
So I was wondering if you all had thoughts on, or anyone in the audience, on how to kind of mend these generation gaps in your fandom and kind of come together over divisions about how the fandom should continue.
I already got a solution for you. Mike, please.
Mike, yeah. Can you run to the mic for me? Thank you.
That one.
That one.
And probably-
Original
way.
cast, those who are still alive,
Other side.
You gotta come around.
deal with ramifications from their past. I mean, we know Xena and Gabrielle met during the events of the series, but, well, let's say I left a tripwire mine just outside the room, and one of you tripped it before you came in. You haven't seen me before, but I've already screwed up your life. Xena was very, very much a villain when she was introduced on Hercules. How much do you want to bet there's some part of Gabrielle's life that was hurt pretty badly, although indirectly, by super villain Xena? You could have the younger villains portray that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's more about like, yeah, it's more about jumping that gap between the people who have been around for a while and are disillusioned, and the people who are just having the big, bright, shiny ideas, who are newer to the fandom and ready and raring to go and get their movie, right? So something kind of similar happened with Firefly. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Serenity. And there was, I mean, they did actually get a movie, but we were promised a trilogy. And as you can tell, that never happened. And the actors involved have many times said that they wanted to be involved again, that they would love to reprise their roles. But at this point, it's been 7 years since the movie. It's been over 10 since the series. And the likelihood of that happening is really, really low. I mean, to be honest, I'm sorry. It's pretty low.
Well, and you have to think of what the actor. I mean,
yeah, the
they're
actors
so
have moved
busy.
on.
Oh, Nathan Fillion, Castle. He's super successful with that. So I don't know that he would be able to come back to a series. He'd be able
Yeah.
to do another movie, but I don't think he'd be able to come back to a series. Plus, you know, like you said, the actors are aging. Time has not stopped for them. So, I think some of the older fans are being a little bit more realistic about it, that they can't exactly come back and be the same people. They could come back and be cameos or mentors or whatever, but if the show comes back, it's going to be about a different crew. Because Hollywood wants the hotties. They want the cute,
They do.
muscular, gorgeous people. And
If you're a
Yeah.
woman, no problem for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well,
at
Oh,
60,
goodness.
whatever,
Right.
reprising Conan.
Well, Lindsay's
Well,
still looking pretty amazing.
there, yeah.
I just saw her the other day. She's still fantastic. But, you know, to your question, I don't know that there's a way to bridge those. I mean, it sounds to me like the older fan has just become jaded over time. The expectations weren't met, and I don't know that you can do anything about that. The newer fans that are still fresh in the show, discovering it for the first time, have this desire all anew like those fans did when the show first ended off the air. But I guarantee you that if they did produce some sort of project, that all fans would unite and get behind the project and be
sure.
excited all over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but I bet you if the content did come, then unity would come out of that.
Yeah, and the biggest thing behind getting more content for your fandom is interest. I mean, if you and your fandom are as loud as possible, I mean, I'm not saying it definitely will happen, but there might be a better chance that something will happen. And I mean, that can be hard when you have jaded people, like some of us. But it could still be possible. I mean, you can still have a very active, very happening fandom, and still possibly see some more content come out of it. I mean, Firefly has more comics coming out. Battlestar Galactica recently had Blood and Chrome. It was released by Machinima. I mean, there's still content that could come out of it. So, I mean, I guess the answer is there's not really a good way to do it until that content comes. So you're waiting on the content. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I can ask another question if no one else wants to.
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. The other thought that I had listening to you all talk was I feel like fans want more content if they're especially unsatisfied with how the series ended, like premature cancellation. And I also watched Fringe all along, and I personally felt very satisfied since they knew the show was going to end and could wrap up loose ends and have a season finale that wasn't totally out of nowhere like some other shows that I won't name. So I was wondering how much you felt like a satisfying ending versus an unsatisfying ending motivated fans to try to get more content.
Well, I can
That's a
tell
good
you
question.
Firefly was highly motivated by an unsatisfying ending. And even to me, even Serenity wasn't super, it was great to have, but it was not super satisfying. The story could continue from Serenity.
Easily.
Right?
And that was the point, because it was going to be
'cause it was
2
gonna be
more movies. So
Right, and we can get them, whatever, we're not bitter. It's fine.
there's no bitterness.
No. But, an instant for like Jericho, I was on board with the whole bring Jericho back, thinking that the second season was going to be like the first one. But it was a completely unsatisfying ending. It just ended. It was just like, what? So, I was really hoping that the second season would come back, it would have the same passion that the first season had, and it was just kind of for me, it was just kind of a dud, and I didn't feel like it was very good. So, I much prefer shows that they know they're going to end, and they end them, and whether it's kind of a crazy, I don't understand this ending kind of ending, or a very logical ending, that gives me more closure, and I feel more satisfied, and I'm happier with it.
Do you think then that you wouldn't say push for more content for it if it was a satisfying ending?
In my head, yeah. I'm trying to think of one that had
a satisfying ending?
had a satisfying. Well, no, I'm just trying to think of one that I was a huge fan of that had a satisfying ending.
Wow, you pick the underdogs, don't you?
I guess I'm happy with the way Stargate, finished. Both SG1 and Atlantis. I wasn't as into SGU, so I didn't see the second season, but. So I can't really talk about that, but I thought Stargate, and I was very sad, but I thought they both ended well. I guess Farscape's a really good example of wanting more content, because after the fourth season, it ended, and you're like, what? And then they come back with a movie that I hated. I hated the movie. The characters' makeup was different. Like, what? No. So I didn't like the Farscape movie very much, and so I'm still unsatisfied with the ending of Farscape. I want better content for it.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, apparently they did. Well, Daryl, what do you think? Oh, sorry.
I think it largely depends on the type of ending that you received. Fringe had a wonderful ending. Very, very few fans were not satisfied with the ending. Having said that, I think there's plenty of direction they could go with the way the show did end.
And have more content.
Yeah, they left it really open and yet resolved nice and clean. Whereas Lost, for example, had what most fans would consider a terrible ending, and I'm one of the few that enjoyed the ending, but also still see. What was that?
That guy loves
He
you.
loves you.
Oh, there's a lot of things I really enjoyed about the ending, but I can see where fans,
there's
could be
already a few
hacked off.
shaking
Yeah.
heads.
But at the same time, where do you go with that? I mean, yeah, you could look at, okay, what happened, with Hurley and Ben on the island, or maybe some other things like that. But the way they closed the story up, I don't want to spoil it if anyone hadn't seen it, but where do you go with that? So, yeah, they were still dissatisfied, but I haven't heard anyone with an outcry of more lost.
No, I haven't.
So I think it really depends on the way it ended. You could have a rough ending like Firefly did, Farscape and others, and there'd be a cry for more content, and have a good solid resolving ending like Fringe did, and still have a desire for more content. So is that a non-answer? I think it was a non-answer.
That was a good answer.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with a good answer, and then we'll let her ask her question.
Thanks for the questions.
It wasn't really a question. I had input on the previous question.
Okay.
Okay.
I think the difference is if it ended really well, fans don't really want it more as much as other fans do, because all of the storylines were resolved in a way that was good.
Oh, so
and everything was finalized, and if you added more,
Okay.
you'd have new storylines and all these new directions to go and new possibilities. And you would ruin that great ending, and it could end up with an
Right.
ending that wasn't as good, and open more storylines that they might not be able to finish in time. Whereas one with a bad ending, you feel like not all the storylines were done, and you need more to, like, oh, what happened with those two characters, or that character, we don't even know. Like, he was in the middle of getting killed. Did he die? And so some of them were really unsatisfactory, and you'd want more to know what happened, because you don't feel like you got the end.
Because then you'd have all the loose ends. So it sounds kind of like Jericho, for instance, might be Carrie's example, where you had a season that was really good, and then the second season was maybe not so
Wasn't what I wanted
wasn't
it to be.
so satisfactory, and now you have some kind of
Well, and
you
I
have
was
some
fine
dis-
with
you
it
have
not
some
coming
real
back.
you have some
So-
real dissatisfaction in the fandom.
But I guess a
Um,
series that ran long that I thought ended well, and I was happy with the ending. And Buffy's a good example. It had a very long run. I loved the end of it. I love that they continued it into comics, but I don't feel any great urge to read the comics that
Right.
much. I've read them; they're great, but I would have been perfectly fine with no more Buffy. I would have been fine because it had a good run. I watch it over and over and over again, and it seems fresh every time I do. So I've been really happy with it.
Well, I mean, with Battlestar Galactica had a bit of a rocky ride at the end. There's a lot of
the ending.
the ending. There's a lot of controversy about that ending. Some people really hate it. Some people really like it. I don't really meet a lot of people in the middle. And then afterwards they had Caprica, and then recently Blood and Chrome. And to be honest, it seemed to kind of not really be satisfactory for the fans. I don't know a lot of fans of Battlestar Galactica who were, really loved Caprica, or really, really loved the most recent Blood and Chrome. Instead, it's just kind of a, it came out. So it's just not been as satisfactory, and I think that may have been even one of the reasons why the BSG fandom isn't quite so representative at conventions as they used to be. You used to see a lot of them, and now you don't. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry. Next question.
I'm sorry. Less a question than a comment.
Okay.
I've been
Could you tilt the mic up a little bit?
Oh yeah, you need
I've been involved in fandom.
since
gotta get in on that microphone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Nice to see you all.
I've been involved in fandom for a long time, from back when I was just a small kid, where I had people who would ship
Gotta
me
stay on that mic. There you go. There you go.
You know, I used to do this for a living, and this is really a mic you got to stay on.
Yeah, you do.
We used to get the mimeograph stuff in the mail. Remember those? You remember those days when it wasn't you went on the internet and got your fan fiction or whatever. You had a group of maybe 10 or 15 people that you knew, and you were all on the mailing list, and you rounded it off, and that's what you did. And I think there's something to be learned from that, from today's fiction, or at least from today's fandom. If they're not going to give us more, make it.
Absolutely.
And it's not a matter of, okay, well, I got to wait and get on a list of 10 people, and we're going to share mimeographs back and forth. You get on Twitter with a hashtag, and suddenly you got 500 people looking at your stuff.
Yep.
When it comes down to it,
Absolutely.
the studio stuff, hey, I love the fact they hand it to us, and I do. I love the end of Lost. I love the end of Battlestar Galactica. PopCultureZoo.com, my defense is on there. But I'll tell you, that was a plug. Did you see that? But the thing is this. We don't need them. We can do this. Kaylee, you can do this. You can do this. You don't need to. Do what you like. And I just want to recommend that to everybody. Do what you like about the show, and make it yours.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that fan fiction and fan films and fan art and fan anything has become a huge way to keep your fandom alive. I mean, that's how we keep Firefly alive, is big events and a lot of fan art. I mean, I have so many Firefly t-shirts that I could probably go a month without wearing a regular, normal t-shirt that isn't Firefly. So, I mean, yeah, you can definitely make your own content, and it's really important. Browncoats Redemption was shown last night. It's a fan film. It raised money for charity. It's an example of fans creating their own content and creating their own content well. So, I mean, that's definitely something that you can do. And then there's, say, the Fringe Podcast. Get a podcast, you guys. I mean...
That's a great suggestion. I mean, podcasting doesn't have to be about current shows. I mean, we do several. We've done a lot of content over either movies that aren't current or shows that aren't current. We did an entire series on Firefly. 8 years after it had been off the air, or so, 7 maybe. And so I don't know how serious you were about that comment, but that's a great suggestion. I mean, there's a community out there. We're in the age of new media. I mean, like you just said, I don't know where you went, but there you are. I mean, you don't have to mail things back and forth anymore. The internet makes everything instantaneous and true at the same time, right? Everything on the internet's true, but you can create all your content. Fringe was great the way it ended, and Joel Wyman, the showrunner, said that he wanted us to be, driving in our cars to work the next day, thinking about what the characters might be doing, and he did that. He did it in a beautiful way. So now, as you're using your imaginations, what are my characters doing today? What's Walter doing? What is he up to? And then create things out of that. I mean, you could go back and review the series and create a podcast series reviewing it. There's so many things you can do. I'm a big podcast fan, obviously, but I mean, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, fan fiction is great, and the Signal has audio dramas all based in the verse that are written. Our writers write them, and we sort of fake act in them, and but it's expanding. It's just things that people thought about. They're like, oh, what would happen if somebody did a show that featured Lenore, who was Miss Universe's robot.
Lovebot. So not just a robot, it was a Lovebot. That kind of thing, and
there's a place for that on the internet.
Yeah, you can.
No question.
Podcast. I was really serious about the podcast. Make your own podcast. I mean, we're all podcasters up here. We all do podcasts, and I started with my friend Anna and a microphone and a really old MacBook. I mean, this thing's on its last legs, and just started putting out shows. That's all it took. So no, I was serious about that. Do it.
Good.
Sorry. Next, let's try and get through the next couple of questions quick, because I want to get everybody's questions before the end of this panel. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, 2 obstacles. One, the Exo Squad, the show I was talking about, it got shunted by NBC for its 39 episode second season to 4 a.m. weekday mornings. So not a lot of people got to see it.
Right.
So not a lot of people are going to recognize it. And the second obstacle is cliffhanger with spin-off bait ending. There was one third season episode produced, but it was never aired because that was when the show was canceled. And
so what was your question on it?
Well, how do I work around these? There's the new threat, the new thing for the season 3 was an alien race is coming. It doesn't look like anything I've seen in the mainstream before. It's all just one big mystery.
So you're wondering how do you get around?
How I get around not knowing what was being built up to, and how do I work around people just not being made aware of it?
Well, I think that
in the first place.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you can still do the same thing. You can start a podcast, you can start a web page, and you can get people made aware of the episodes so that you can start getting more people interested in it. But as for like where it was going, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to get around that unless you get other content. Next question.
Hi, I'm actually part of 2 fandoms that got announced that they're going to be canceled.
Oh,
after
really?
Yeah, Green Lantern and Young Justice. And as soon as we got word of it, there was actually several campaigns launched, like Twitter every week. And so you think that's going to have any difference on whether or not we get more content?
Well, I mean, it could. You think
Anything's
Jericho's
possible.
my go-to example, apparently. It got announced it was canceled. Fans mobilized, sent nuts to, I guess, CBS, I guess.
Bags of nuts.
Bags of nuts. And so, and you have to be really, really smart about that to an extent, too. You don't want to just lambast the studio with a bunch of really useless stuff. CBS donated all the nuts to, like, homeless shelters and stuff like that. You just have to get the awareness out there, and you have to have the passion behind it. And if it's strong enough and you can demonstrate that it's there, then your chances go up that there's new content. But that business is completely money driven. So if they don't feel they're going to make money off it, they're not going to do it, which is unfortunate and it's heartbreaking. We've all been through that and had to face that kind of reality. But so.
Yeah, I would say the news is good. It may not save your 2 shows. It didn't save Fringe, but the way that social media engagement is changing the landscape of television, it is changing the landscape, is what I'm trying to say. And Fringe, I believe Fringe had a big part of this with our Twitter campaigns. And we did send white tulips to the studio, and I don't know how much that had help in getting a new season. But starting in the fall, there's a new, Nielsen is going to take into consideration social media engagement as part of their ratings system for shows. And so this is a huge deal.
Yeah.
It won't save your shows. It didn't save Fringe. They're probably too late for that, but other shows will benefit off of their deaths. And so get engaged with social media, use the hashtags, be supportive of it in a positive way. She talked about that. Don't hit the studio with a bunch of, oh, you guys are terrible, you killed another show, or anything negative. Be supportive, be positive, engage the fandoms that are out there, and be vocal in a positive way. It will change. It is changing. It's just going to take a little bit of time, but it's getting there.
Yeah, and now that there's the internet, your show can at least live on somewhat on the internet. Online, you can still see the shows, and you can turn to really productive things like making your own fan art and things like that. Okay?
Good question. Thank you.
Sorry to hear about your shows.
Yeah.
Okay, really, really fast. We are really almost completely out of time. So my very last question for my panelists, what is where has your geekiness led you to? Like, what weird place have you gone to from your fandom? Like, for instance, some people actually learn Chinese after seeing Firefly. So what weird random place did you go to?
Mine's a set answer because you already
I
know
already
that.
know your answer, but they don't.
So for me, because I love Joss Whedon so much, I kind of keep track of all of his actors, and Felicia Day is one of them, obviously. So I watched The Guild. The Guild did a Bollywood thing with Sandeep Parikh and all this kind of stuff, reminding me that I'd always kind of wanted to watch Bollywood. So I watched Bollywood, and in the last 2 years, I have watched maybe 10 English-speaking movies and hundreds of Bollywood movies. Wow. And I started learning Hindi. So that's the weird place that my fandom took me, was to a completely off-the-wall, random place. But it's awesome, and I love it.
That's an incredible answer. I have nothing to even remotely compared to that. No, I'm serious. I don't know how to answer that. It got me, when I started the podcast, it was just something that I thought I would do, in my spare room with my friends. Actually, it was on my kitchen table, and now it's like an entire dedicated studio with lighting and cameras and all this big production company and stuff that we do. Jeez. So I never knew, it was going to lead into something like that, but that's amazing. That's so cool and nerdy at the same time.
Oh, God. Really fast.
I have an Abydos Egyptian decorated bedroom.
Abydos Egyptian. Oh, Stargate fan.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to be selling bikes soon in Portland. And one of the things we did was I started naming all my bikes. They all have names. My car has a name. Everything has a name. My husband actually has Serenity along the has the Serenity name along the frame of his bike, because we're big kind of bike nerds too. So I mean, transportation is love. So I think I'm completely out of time, aren't we? I have 25 seconds.
25 seconds.
Very fast.
When I was in anime, I learned Japanese and then I forgot it all. And also because of Supernatural, I started going by Cass at school.
Nice. Real quick. Fast.
I started memorizing the lantern oaths for all of the Volunteers.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay, thank you everybody
Thank
for
you,
coming to
guys.
our
Thank you.
panel. We hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your convention.